Part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6 brought us an impressive show, great battles, and everything we fans of the saga love. But did everything go well? Or are there things that could have been improved? That's what we'll talk about here. Today on Charlietales, we'll review the good and the bad of Part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6. As always, I must warn you that this video contains spoilers, so you've been warned. Ready? Let's go! My first good point is the character writing. Part 2 introduces us to the Sekai Taikai, the biggest karate tournament in the world. At this point in the series, all the characters we've met in the past come together for the big battle. It's quite complicated to handle a story with so many characters and give each of them their development arc, but Cobra Kai resolved it quite well. Almost everyone has functional storylines, and they connected them very skillfully. There's Hawk and Dimitri's storyline and their disagreement about MIT. Miguel tries to overcome the resentment he feels toward Robbie for taking the leadership role. Robbie struggles with his insecurities due to his breakup with Tori. We have Daniel investigating Miyagi's past, while Johnny struggles with the difficulties of being a father to Miguel and Robbie. And I'm leaving out many more storylines, like the one with Silver and Kreese, or the one with Axel and Zara. There are about 15 storylines constantly moving. It would have been very easy for everything to fall apart or feel overwhelming. But far from that, Part 2 connects all the stories intelligently. During the tournament, most of the storylines came together in Episode 9. Here, the kids faced Cobra Kai and had to leave their insecurities behind to win. Miguel accepted Robbie's leadership and gave him the confidence to be the team captain. Dimitri and Hawk made peace and defeated Yoon, one of the most powerful Cobra Kai members together. Kenny's entrance was fantastic. Robbie believed in him and acted as a true leader. He trusted his instincts, and thanks to that, Miyagi-Do won. Kenny barely had screen time in the episodes, but when he appeared, he stole the scenes. What a wonderful episode. The fact is that Part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6 gave us a very solid story with many small subplots to give each character their space, so I can confidently say that the writing in Cobra Kai is quite solid. It may have its weaknesses, but overall, they did an excellent job. My second good point is the battles. Cobra Kai is a series that stands out for its excellent battles, full of adrenaline and emotion. With this in mind, many of us had high expectations for the Sekai Taikai, and I can say that so far, the fights have totally delivered. There are epic battles everywhere. Perhaps the best of all was Robbie against Quan. This fight exceeded my expectations. However, Part 2 also brought variety to the battles, which was much needed. The series cleverly used the Sekai Taikai to move away from the classic one-on-one tournament format. Thanks to this, we have many epic group fights, like when Dimitri and Hawk worked together to defeat Cobra Kai. Or there's also the scene where Dimitri made way for Kenny, and together they performed a legendary move to defeat their rivals. But my favorite scene was led by Miguel. In the second phase of the tournament, all the Miyagi-Do members were eliminated, except Miguel. So he had to face two opponents at the same time to knock them off the platform. What a wonderful fight! There's no doubt Miguel is back in his prime. In this good point, I also want to mention the Iron Dragons. Seriously, what monsters they are, especially Axel. In all their fights, they've shown themselves to be machines. Axel in particular is like a robot. He has perfect precision, attack, and defense. In the last episode, we saw Robbie completely focused and at his best level to face him, but even so, he couldn't land a single hit. Part 2 has managed to establish the Iron Dragons as impressive rivals. All their fights demonstrate their excellent level, and I'm very excited to see how they'll be faced. Now we move on to my bad points of Part 2. My bad point is the wasted potential of certain characters. As I mentioned in my first good point, this part of the series has many characters, so it's normal for some to lose relevance or even be downplayed to avoid drawing attention. Specifically, I was quite annoyed by the clear nerf they gave Hawk this season. Let's remember that Hawk is a high-level fighter, only behind Miguel and perhaps Robbie. But now they've limited him quite a bit, and he seems like an ordinary fighter. It even seems like they want to show him at Dimitri's level, which is not the case. Hawk is superior to him. Hawk has been one of those affected by the excess of storylines. He's barely had any room to shine, and to me that's a shame. I think he could have given a bit more. Another character who almost does nothing is Samantha. I know many people don't like her, but despite everything, she's an important character. She's almost the only one in Part 2 who doesn't have valuable development. She was almost filler, and contributed very little, despite being Miyagi-Do's captain. I could also include Quan in this point. This young man served as the villain of Part 2, and had excellent moments. Plus, we were all shocked by his death at the end. A truly impactful moment. But I do think they could have given him a bit more space to better understand his motivations, so that we could connect with him more. Despite everything, he was just a dumb and aggressive kid, misguided by John Kreese toward violence. He's basically a version of Johnny Lawrence if he'd never left Cobra Kai. I think Quan was a character with a lot to offer, and with a couple more scenes, we could have connected better with him, making his death more powerful. My other bad point is the cliches and script errors. Cliches are those ideas that have been repeated so much that they've lost their novelty. Cobra Kai is a series that recycles many ideas from previous seasons. They did it in part 1 and did it again in part 2. For example, the typical rivalry between Daniel and Johnny repeats. Again, both are at odds and need to reconcile in some episode. We even have a scene where they almost fight on the beach, but Miguel manages to stop them. Does the plot work? Yes. But honestly, it's something we've seen many times. I think it wasn't necessary this time. Another quite repeated mechanic is the typical character unfocused during fights. This time they focused this idea on Robbie, who started the tournament sad about his relationship with Tori. In several fights we see Robbie trying to focus, but glancing at Tori and getting distracted. The idea worked, but it was used so much that it became repetitive. Especially with Robbie, this idea has already been used a lot in previous seasons. This is what I mentioned about cliches, but in terms of script errors, Part 2 makes quite questionable decisions to move the plot forward. For me, the biggest inconsistency happens at the end, when a brawl breaks out between all the dojos. I understand Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do starting to fight because of the commotion, but it made no sense for all the dojos to go crazy and attack for no reason. It felt like they only did this brawl to give us fan service, trying to imitate the epic school fight from Season 2. But that school fight was justified. Additionally, it's clear that this group brawl at the Sekai Taikai was made to set up Quan's death. This part of the story didn't sit well with me. Even this tarnished Quan's death a bit, because he died trying to attack Axel, which doesn't make much sense. The most logical thing would have been for Quan to try using the knife against Robbie, who is his real rival, and humiliated him in the past. Connecting Quan with Axel didn't make sense. The script for Part 2 is generally very good, but by the end, it's clear they didn't know how to resolve things properly, and preferred to give us a big fight no matter what. As a conclusion, Part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6 is excellent. It introduced us to interesting characters, functional storylines, and epic battles with no waste. There are many elements of the series that have become repetitive, but even so, they don't ruin the experience. To me, the series is on the right track, and I'm looking forward to Part 3. That's all for today. If you liked the video, you'd really help me out by leaving a like. That would be legendary. Also, remember to subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for listening. My name is Charlie, and I'll see you in the future.